Does your dog scratch nonstop, have recurrent ear infections, or digestive problems that never get better? These signs can indicate food allergy, and choosing the right diet can change everything. Remember, there is no universal answer. What really helps is correct diagnosis, tutor discipline, and professional monitoring. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss tips on canine nutrition and health. Leave your like if you believe that every dog deserves a life without allergies. Food allergies in dogs are one of the most frustrating and emotional challenges for pet owners. When a pet develops persistent itching, redness of the skin, compulsive paw licking, recurrent ear infections, and gastrointestinal disorders like chronic diarrhea or frequent vomiting, life at home turns into a cycle of appointments, temporary medications, and attempts to change food that rarely work. Often, the owner watches helplessly as the dog loses weight, loses hair, or spends sleepless nights scratching until it bleeds. This suffering is not only physical for the animal, it is also emotional for those who live with it daily. Veterinary research indicates that approximately 10% of allergies in dogs are foodborne, which means that thousands of animals around the world suffer from adverse reactions to what they eat every day. The main villains identified are the common proteins present in traditional diets. Chicken, beef, dairy, soy, wheat, and corn are among the ingredients most often associated with allergic reactions. The mechanism behind this is relatively simple. The dog's immune system recognizes a certain protein as a threat, even if it is not dangerous in itself. This misinterpretation generates an inflammatory response that manifests itself in the skin, ears, or gastrointestinal tract. The tutor who is faced with this problem almost always starts with the most common path, changing the brand of food. However, this measure rarely works because most traditional feeds use the same base proteins. A dog allergic to chicken will continue to react, even if the packaging promises better digestibility or healthier coat. It is at this point that two main alternatives presented by veterinarians and animal nutrition specialists emerge: the raw, natural diet of the BARF type, or the use of a hypoallergenic feed. The BARF diet, an acronym for Biologically Appropriate Raw Food, was conceived in the 1990s and has gained strength among owners who want to offer the dog a diet closer to that which the wolf ancestors consumed. The proposal is to provide raw and fresh food, such as meat, fleshy bones, offal, vegetables, and fruits, respecting proportions designed to ensure nutritional balance. One of the main arguments in favor of BARF is the elimination of artificial preservatives, colorings, flavorings, and low-quality ingredients often found in industrial feeds. For owners of allergic dogs, the appeal lies in the possibility of customizing the diet, choosing specific ingredients, and eliminating any protein suspected of causing a reaction. On the other side of the scale, hypoallergenic feed is the result of science applied to animal nutrition. It can be produced in two main ways: with hydrolyzed proteins, or with proteins called novel. In the first case, the protein undergoes a hydrolysis process, which fragments it into particles so small that the immune system does not recognize them as a threat, avoiding the allergic reaction. In the second, an unusual protein is used in canine food, such as lamb meat, cold water fish, duck, or even alternative proteins such as insects. The logic is simple. If the dog has never come into contact with that protein, it will hardly have developed sensitivity to it. In addition, these feeds are formulated to offer complete nutritional balance, which reduces the risk of deficiencies. The contrast between the two approaches is evident. On one side, the image of a colorful bowl with fresh meats, vegetables, and fruits, representing the BARF diet. On the other, the uniform grains of a feed developed in the laboratory, which at first glance may seem less attractive, but carry precise nutritional engineering. The tutor, faced with these options, feels torn between the naturalness and freshness of BARF and the scientific safety of hypoallergenic food. To understand which of the two options really helps an allergic dog, it is essential to first understand how the body reacts to the presence of the allergen. Allergy does not depend on the amount ingested. Even a small fraction of the protein triggers the inflammatory process. Therefore, simply reducing the dose of a food or offering a different version of the same protein does not solve it. It is necessary to completely eliminate the offending ingredient. In this sense, both BARF and hypoallergenic food can be valid tools, as long as they are applied correctly and under professional supervision. The big mistake of many tutors is to believe that the solution lies in trying one diet after another, without method and without monitoring. This trial and error confuses the dog's body, masks symptoms, and makes diagnosis even more difficult. The choice between BARF and hypoallergenic food should not be made based on personal preferences or reports from other owners, but rather through structured investigation. After understanding the concept of the two alternatives, BARF and hypoallergenic food, it's time to dive into their pros and cons, analyzing not only the theoretical benefits, but also the practical challenges that each tutor faces on a daily basis. The BARF diet, first of all, draws attention for the possibility of complete customization. The owner has absolute control over each ingredient that makes up the dog's meal. This allows you to immediately eliminate suspicious proteins, test new options, and quickly adjust the diet according to the observed reactions. For dogs with a history of allergies, this flexibility can be a decisive differentiator. It is not just about freshness, but about being able to exclude artificial additives, preservatives, and dyes present in many industrial feeds, which can aggravate inflammatory conditions. Another strength of BARF is the perception reported by many owners of visible improvements in the quality of life of dogs. Animals that adapt well to this diet usually have shinier coats, less oily skin, more pleasant breath, less feces production, and increased vitality. In allergic dogs, these signs can represent not only aesthetic well-being, but real relief after months of suffering from itching and constant inflammation. However, the BARF diet is not free of important risks and limitations. The first is bacterial contamination. When dealing with raw food, there is a possibility of exposure to agents such as Salmonella and E. coli, which can affect both the dog and the people in the household. The second risk is nutritional imbalance. Without specialized veterinary monitoring, it is easy to make serious mistakes in formulation. Excess protein, deficiency of calcium, phosphorus, and other essential micronutrients can seriously compromise the animal's health in the long term. For an allergic dog, which already faces immune system challenges, these mistakes can be even more damaging. In addition, BARF requires time, dedication, and technical knowledge. It is not enough to offer raw meat randomly. It is necessary to weigh food, respect appropriate proportions, sanitize utensils rigorously, and ensure diversity of nutrients. For families with hectic routines or little experience, this commitment can become a significant obstacle. On the other hand, hypoallergenic food presents itself as a solution based on science and nutritional precision. It is formulated in a laboratory with controlled ingredients and undergoes rigorous quality tests. The versions with hydrolyzed protein break down the molecules into fragments so small that the dog's immune system cannot identify them as a threat, avoiding the allergic reaction. Novel protein versions, on the other hand, offer ingredients rarely present in the traditional diet, reducing the chance of sensitization. The benefits of this option are clear: practicality, predictability, and security. The tutor opens the package and knows exactly what he is offering, without unexpected variations. The risk of bacterial contamination is practically non-existent, and nutritional balance is guaranteed. For many dogs with severe allergies or multiple sensitivities, hypoallergenic food represents the only alternative capable of reliably stabilizing the clinical picture. However, even this solution has its limitations. High cost is one of the main barriers, especially in households with a restricted budget. In addition, some hypoallergenic foods have a less attractive taste, which can lead to rejection by the dog. In cases like this, it is necessary to gradually adapt or seek alternatives within the same category. Another point is that, despite all the scientific care, there is still the possibility of failure. Some dogs develop intolerance or do not show significant improvement even with hypoallergenic food. In practice, reports of success and failure exist for both sides. There are dogs that transform their quality of life by starting BARF, and others that only find stability in hypoallergenic food. This diversity of answers reinforces the idea that there is no single formula, but rather the need for individualized evaluation. It is in this scenario that it becomes essential to understand the process of clinical investigation and diagnosis. Before deciding between BARF and hypoallergenic food, the owner needs to know exactly what causes the allergy in his dog, and this is only possible with discipline and patience to follow specific protocols. Identifying the real cause of food allergy in dogs is a task that requires patience, discipline, and professional monitoring. This is where the concept of the exclusion diet comes in, considered the gold standard in diagnosis. Without this step, any decision between BARF and hypoallergenic feed is just trial and error, and can prolong the animal's suffering. The exclusion diet consists of offering the dog only an unprecedented source of protein and a carbohydrate that he has never consumed before. This eliminates any possibility of contact with allergens that have caused reactions in the past. This phase lasts between 8 and 12 weeks, enough time for the dog's body to reduce inflammation and symptoms to disappear. During this period, it is essential to maintain absolute discipline. You cannot offer snacks, industrialized bones, leftover food, or any other food outside the prescribed diet. A simple piece of bread or cookie offered by someone can compromise the entire process. If symptoms disappear or improve significantly during this phase, the chance of food allergy strengthens. But the diagnosis is only confirmed when the gradual reintroduction of food begins, one at a time. If, after the reintroduction of a certain protein, the dog again has itching, otitis, or digestive problems, the link is evident. That ingredient is the real trigger of the allergy. This method, although time-consuming, is the most effective and reliable to identify which foods should be definitively eliminated from the diet. In this context, both BARF and hypoallergenic food can have strategic roles. BARF offers the flexibility to work directly with fresh, novel ingredients, putting together personalized exclusion diets based on novel proteins, such as lamb, white fish, or rabbit, combined with simple carbohydrates, such as sweet potatoes or pumpkin. Hypoallergenic food, on the other hand, ensures safety by using hydrolyzed proteins, practically eliminating any chance of reaction, even in highly sensitive dogs. An important detail is that the improvement of symptoms does not occur immediately. The body needs weeks to recover from the inflammation that has already set in. During this time, it is common to observe oscillations. Some days better, others worse. The tutor needs to understand that this instability is part of the process and should not give up before the conclusion of the 12 weeks. Impatience is one of the main reasons that lead to inconclusive diagnoses. Another aspect that deserves attention is that not all dogs are allergic to just one protein. There are cases in which the animal reacts to multiple ingredients, which makes the process even more complex. In these scenarios, the BARF diet may become limited by the difficulty of offering variety without falling into dangerous repetitions, while hypoallergenic food emerges as a more reliable alternative to maintain nutritional balance and reduce risks. In addition, some owners resort to allergy laboratory tests, which analyze blood or saliva samples from the dog. These tests may offer clues, but they are not a substitute for the exclusion diet, as they often have false positive or false negative results. Clinical observation accompanied by a professional remains the most accurate way to identify the true triggers. During the exclusion diet, it is essential that the owner records all the details. Keeping a food diary with information about the ingredients offered, meal times, and symptoms presented is a practice that greatly helps the veterinarian in analyzing the results. This monitoring allows you to identify subtle patterns, such as crises, that appear a few days after eating a certain food. Another important point is the collaboration of the whole family. It is no use for a tutor to follow the diet with discipline if another person at home, out of pity for the dog, offers a forbidden treat. Clear communication and collective commitment are key to the success of the process. At the end of the exclusion diet, when the triggering ingredients are identified, space is open to define the definitive diet. At this time, both BARF and hypoallergenic food can be adjusted to the dog's specific needs. Some animals thrive on natural diets with carefully chosen proteins. Others need the constant safety of hydrolyzed protein. What really matters is that the decision is based on evidence and not on random trials. This process also helps differentiate food allergies from food intolerances, which are different conditions. In intolerance, the dog's body cannot properly digest a certain food, such as lactose, but there is no immune response. In allergy, the immune system identifies the protein as an enemy and generates an inflammatory reaction. This distinction is crucial because it directly influences diet choice and long-term management. Reaching the final decision between BARF and hypoallergenic food requires more than personal preference. It requires understanding the uniqueness of each dog, recognizing practical limitations of the family, and accepting that the adjustment process can take weeks or even months. The most important thing is to understand that there is no universal solution. What transforms the life of one animal may be ineffective for another. BARF, when well structured, with the guidance of a veterinary nutritionist, can offer impressive results. Customization is its greatest asset. Owners can select new proteins, eliminate suspect ingredients, and adapt the diet in real time, according to the dog's response. For many animals, this means reducing inflammation, improving skin quality, strengthening the immune system, and regaining lost energy. It is also a way to offer fresh meals without artificial additives, which appeals to those who value naturalness. But this path requires discipline. Preparing BARF involves detailed knowledge about the correct proportions of proteins, fleshy bones, vegetables, offal, and supplements. A small miscalculation can lead to calcium deficiencies, phosphorus imbalances, or a lack of essential vitamins. In addition, handling raw food carries a risk of bacterial contamination, which requires strict hygiene at all stages. Another factor is time. Preparing, portioning, and storing meals requires daily dedication, something that not all tutors can maintain in the long term. Hypoallergenic food, in turn, delivers safety and practicality. Every grain carries scientific precision. In the versions with hydrolyzed protein, the molecule is reduced to tiny fragments incapable of provoking an immune response. The novel protein versions, on the other hand, explore rare ingredients, reducing the chance of allergic reaction. This control ensures predictability. The tutor knows exactly what the dog is consuming without unexpected variations. For families with an intense routine or with polyallergic dogs, this reliability can be the difference between months of suffering and a stable life. However, hypoallergenic food also presents challenges. The high cost is one of the main ones, especially because the treatment is long-term. In addition, some dogs reject the taste, requiring gradual adaptation. And there are cases in which even the food does not offer total relief, either due to intolerance to the chosen protein or multiple allergies that make it necessary to combine strategies. Basically, the choice is not between right and wrong. It is between possible paths, each with its benefits and its difficulties. The tutor should evaluate with the veterinarian which approach is most feasible, considering three main factors: the dog's needs, the family's ability to maintain the chosen diet, and the results obtained during the exclusion diet. It is important to remember that allergic dogs do not have to live in suffering. With patience, discipline, and monitoring, most find stability and significant improvement. Some thrive on carefully crafted BARF. Others find in the hypoallergenic food the tranquility that was missing. In both cases, the goal is the same: to give the dog back the quality of life, the willingness to play, the tranquility to sleep, and the joy of living without itching or constant pain. Another essential point is to understand that the right diet goes beyond eliminating allergies. It strengthens the animal's overall health. Once adjusted, it contributes to longevity, strengthens the immune system, and improves physical and emotional well-being. Food is more than nutrition. It is treatment, prevention, and in many cases, the watershed between a life limited by disease and a full life. Finally, it is up to the tutor not to be carried away by fads or isolated opinions. What really helps an allergic dog is not the choice of a food trend, but the disciplined search for what works in the specific case. The tutor who understands this starts to see the diet as a tool of care and love, not just as food in the bowl. The real victory is seeing a dog once plagued by incessant itching and inflammation finally rest in peace, sleep peacefully, and wake up with the energy to live fully. It is knowing that each meal is no longer an invisible threat and has become a source of health. This is the power of a conscious decision. to return dignity, comfort, and joy to those who do not know how to ask for words, but demonstrate with the sparkle in their eyes when they are finally free from pain.